Welcome to the Cross the Line podcast. My name is Carlos Smith, and we are here at the Ice House Comedy Club, the festival here in Pasadena, California. I have another comedian with me right now, Miss Katie Blunt. Katie, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. You just finished your set. How are you feeling after wrapping up your show tonight? How are you feeling about everything?
Oh, pretty good. I mean, I really like John, who runs John Grimes
Great guy.
runs the festival, and I was on it last year as well.
Okay.
And it's really cool to see the way that it's transformed in just 1 year. You know,
Absolutely.
This is a really cool venue.
Does it still feel like it's somewhat of a competition because you want to do your best, and of course they want to do their best, but you want to, of course, get the most laughs and everything?
Oh, I don't feel that way at this festival because it's not a contest. But
Right.
last year I was on a contest, and then if I'm on a contest, I do want to win. But I also obviously, if it's a good friend, I'm really excited when they win. So
If it's a contest, do you feel like it's more pressure if it's a contest as opposed to just not with this not being a contest, you just going out there? Does that kind of take away some of that pressure that you may feel?
I don't know. I think it depends. I mean, I've definitely been on contests that did not have a lot going on them, and I've had shows that were not contests that felt more important to me. So I think it really kind of depends. I think with comedy, the main thing you're looking at is how many people are in the audience.
Right.
That kind of determines it, and then how long of a set are you doing, and kind of what you're associated with a little bit. Like if you're opening for a bigger name, it can be exciting and sometimes feel like a bit more pressure. But I feel like the more pressure is kind of better.
Right. When you're doing a show like this, in your opinion, and there's so many people in that lineup as well, is it hard to kind of get to the joke that you want to get, and because it's so many people, you're only up there for a limited amount of time, is it hard to kind of get those jokes, tell the joke how you may want to set it up?
I don't think so. I feel like there's a lot of I'm from New York.
Okay.
So we have a lot of there's a lot of different shows out there. And so you have a lot of different things where you have 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 8 minutes, and you learn how to work within that time frame. I think some people from different parts of the country might be used to longer sets, because I think road shows have a different format. There's usually like a feature and a headliner, and it's a longer period of time that somebody's on stage. At larger cities like New York and Los Angeles, they tend to be there's more competition, and so you have to have a shorter, I think, tighter set. So you kind of get to pick out the jokes that you're going to do.
Being from New York, how do you view the comedy scene in New York as opposed to out here in LA?
I think so. There's this writer for the New York. He said the lines in New York or the light in New York is sharp and bright. The light in California is soft and diffuse, and the art is that way, and so are the people. So I feel like there is in New York comedy, it's pretty hard hitting, it's pretty sharp. People are cranky. There's an edge to it.
Yeah.
It's a little more brutal. Whereas in LA, I feel like it's more narrative, it's more storytelling. There's a lot of emotions to it, and you can kind of hear it just in the atmosphere. I don't know if you felt that. You're from South Carolina?
We're from South Carolina.
Yeah.
We're all about Southern hospitality.
Southern hospitality, yeah, which is really. I lived in Tennessee for 4 years.
Okay.
So it's a very warm. I feel like this. I don't know very much about comedy in the South, but I feel like it's a kind of warm environment.
Oh, absolutely.
In LA, I feel like it's there's just so much I just to find an example. When I first sat down at a restaurant this trip, somebody to the table next to me was so I was just vulnerable, and it's that's the kind of energy,
I was gonna say I would think it kind of makes up the identity of where you're from. Like you said, when you think of New York as a cold, gritty, and a lot of times for us we hear that, man, people up north are just rude or whatever. So it's more of I guess more like a blue collar and just a tougher environment as opposed to the South with Southern hospitality, or LA you got the the bright lights and the palm trees and everything. So it's more like a laid back style out here.
There is a more laid back style. Well, New York is also very hierarchical. It's because of the way that it's such limited space. I feel like there's a lot more. It's just a more competitive space, and people are having to do one thing and do it really well. Whereas LA, I feel like everybody that I meet is doing like 3 different things. It's like I'm a real estate agent, and I'm also a writer, and I also act sometimes.
Absolutely.
Like there's a lot of hats.
Going back just a little bit, like, do you remember when you first got exposed to comedy?
Oh man, first exposure. Like I feel like as a little kid. I mean,
Right.
I don't.
Was it
I
any
didn't think-
particular comedian that you saw that made you fall in love with comedy?
No. I'm sorry. No, I feel like I saw comedians that I loved, but nothing made me think that I would do it. I think until I've only been doing comedy for a couple of years.
Okay.
And it was really I think I haven't been broken. I kept on and then we broke up. That was when I was really like, she's never gonna find me down here. Yeah. So I don't know.
Right. So, because I always wonder, like, was that kind of like a hard pivot because you're in a unique space. It's not every day that you hear somebody say they're a comedian. Of course, you may see athletes, entertainers. Of course, people work the traditional 9 to 5, but to be a comedian, you don't hear that often. Was that kind of like a hard pivot from doing what you working? I would assume, did you work a 9 to 5 at first, or
No,
I
still have like my day job as like a side thing. I was a teacher and a tutor. So I quit all of my teaching jobs. I taught 8th grade math, and I was teaching like a 7th grade math remediation course, as well as some high school like stuff. And then I had a couple of classes at a college at the Fashion Institute of New York. So I was an adjunct lecturer there, and I quit all of my classroom stuff and did comedy instead. And I still have tutoring that I do during the day.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of respect for comedy, with good reason. You know, anybody can grab a microphone and just start talking into it. I feel like it's a saturated market, and there's probably a lot of bad comedy out there. But I think it's something that if you love to do it, you find a way.
Do you feel like as a female comedian, it's even harder to make it in stand up?
I think. Oh, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I mean, there's also an element of you get up based on who your friends are. You know, you get stage time based on who you know and who you're friendly with, and so
Right.
I think that sometimes having an identity that like fits in with the majority can be helpful for the networking stuff. But I mean, I think it's still. So I guess there is kind of there's an advantage to being female, and there's a disadvantage to being female.
What was that conversation like? I know you said your ex talked to you about it, but was there anybody else, like family and friends that you said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a career in comedy? Like,
No, I would. If anybody's thinking about doing comedy, I would recommend not talking to family and not talking to friends about it. It's like it has to be.
Why would you? Why is that for you? Why would you say that?
It's a very frowned upon thing to do. I feel like it's really about looking into what you want and thinking about that, because I think even Eric Newman talks about how he in his set he talks about his mom still having a hard time with him doing comedy. And he's like a national headliner at the Cellar and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who I think don't get positive feedback from their families, because a lot of it is talking about, comedy is all based on intimacy. You're talking about things that are private. You're talking about secrets, and sometimes families don't want you sharing that. And sometimes you make really big mistakes and you cross the line, or you say something inappropriate, and that's embarrassing. It's a lot of risk. And so I think I understand why families would be averse to it and would be slow to accept and understand and celebrate it. I think, my family has come to be really supportive of it. Incredibly supportive of it. I'm a single mom, and I went to Las Vegas for 2 festivals, and my mom came and met me so that I could bring my son with me.
Oh, that's
so awesome. I took him out of school for a week.
Okay.
And then at the parent-teacher conference, the teacher said that he after Las Vegas, all of his negative self-talk had gone away. Like he had a completely more positive, more confident outlook on things. And I feel like when and I'm sure you know this as a parent,
Absolutely.
Like when a parent really takes the time to think about their own happiness and pursue the things that
your
make them
child
happy.
can feel that.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. When did your family find out that you were doing comedy? Because I know you said you would advise people not to tell their family, but for you, at what point did you finally like let them know, oh, hey, I'm doing comedy?
I mean, I think I told them about it. It wasn't like a secret I was keeping, but it wasn't something that asking them about it would have led to them being like, oh, why don't you go do that? You know? I think my aunt came to one of my first shows. I think I had been 4 months in, and I did this industry room thing in New York, which got me a residency at this comedy club. So she came to that show. My mom came to a couple of shows early on and did not like the comedy at all. She was like, Katie, this is a man's game. You got to be stronger, you know? And I was just like, comedy does not attract
it does
strong
have a
men.
gender to it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does a little bit. I think there is, you know, you are kind of fighting against history a little bit, you know, trying to get on stage as a woman. But
not to cut you off, but I feel like they do it, of course, in sports as well. When they see women talking about, you know, covering the NFL or NBA or any sport, they say, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Why is she talking about sports? Do something else. You know, I feel like they do the same thing. You know, that women can do the same thing cover the game just like men. They can have, a lot of times they do have more knowledge than men, because you see them say some of the most outlandish stuff in sports at times. So women can definitely, if they can do that, speak about sports, why not speak about have a career in comedy as well?
That's cool. Yeah. Is your background more with sports?
It started out in sports. So when I was in college, probably my senior year at USC Upstate, this was 2014. I just thought I was supposed to go to college. So my first 3 years in college, I was just going through the motions. And then I'll never forget, I remember seeing Stephen A. and Skip talk about sports on TV, just being naive. I was like, man, they just talk about sports and get paid. I can do something like that. So got an internship while I covered high school football, covered the Charlotte Hornets. I did NASCAR, just all type of different sporting events. Graduated, couldn't get a job in my field. So I was just like, nobody gonna give me a chance. Let me create my own opportunity. So this was supposed to be a sports podcast originally. So locally, I just started interviewing local entrepreneurs, and they started sharing their business, about like how they started their business. And then towards the end of the interview, we would talk about sports if that was something they, you know, were interested in. But once they started sharing the journey of the ups and downs they went through in business, I just got fascinated with entrepreneurship. So I do have athletes come on from time to time, talk about sports. And even now, when we're not doing the podcast with entrepreneurs, I cover the Charlotte Hornets and cover South Carolina State. It's at HBCU back at home, cover football. So I'm still connected through sports. So I just look at it like you meet people through the vessel. If you could give somebody advice, maybe it's not to be a comedian, what advice would you give them for someone that wants to pursue their dreams?
For anything? I think, okay, so I have this theory that inside of everybody's like chest, there's this locked vault that contains your life's purpose. And I think a lot of people get close to that, and they might see the light under the door, and they just lie there, right? It's like people who might date an audio engineer when they're actually meant to be a DJ or something like that, you know? So I think that it's easy to get close to your calling, but not actually tackle it. And so there's this feeling of dissatisfaction. So I think that it's really critical to constantly be taking your own temperature, like emotionally, and asking yourself, am I happy? Is this really what's making me happy? Because if you can align your vision and your talent, if you can have the thing that you want to do and the thing that you're best at and have that lined up, I just feel like it's like riding a wave. You know how surfers get into like the note of the wave? It's like things can go so smoothly. But I've had so many different, and I don't know, I mean, maybe at some point comedy will take a turn and I'll get into something else. But I've had so many different artistic pursuits. You know, I've tried music. I've done music production. I've done singing. I've done
I would rather look at something and say, oh well, knowing that I tried it, than to just say what if. I wish, looking back, I wish I would have took the chance, you know, to go after what I really love. So I would rather say, oh well, just knowing that, hey, I gave this thing everything I had, I made that effort, and just to say, because it's so many people, like you're saying, that they really want to do something, but they're afraid for whatever reason. Maybe think they're worried about what other people will say, so they don't go after their dream, and they just want to stay, where they are, and in the end, they feel miserable and they feel like they're trapped. So
Yeah.
I will always tell people, whatever it is you want to do in life, just go after it. Because we made a video earlier just showing like where we are here in LA. Well, this is Pasadena, but we're staying over in LA, but showing where we're from in a small town in Jonesville. Like my town has 3 lights in it, the whole entire town. So to go from there to being out here, man, it's a beautiful thing. And I tell people, man, I'm not smarter, I'm not the most athletic person, but I just believe in what I'm doing. I just have this confidence that I can achieve everything. And I know for me, I'm a strong believer in God. So that's where my source and my faith, that's where I place my faith. So just tell him, like you said, just go after what it is you want. Like you don't want to live life with regrets.
Yeah.
My last and final question before we got here that I ask everybody at the end, even when we're on the road traveling or interviewing other entrepreneurs, I love to ask everyone, what does self-investment mean to you?
What does self-investment mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it's kind of like what we're talking about. I think it's a willingness to take risks, and a willingness to make a fool out of yourself.
Absolutely.
But in the process, I think finding ways to explore how to enrich your life, and sometimes that can mean something that's not related to the arts at all. Sometimes it means looking into investment strategies or Bitcoin or something like that. I just think that taking risks and learning. I think it's a lot of self-investment is just like self-education. You just find classes that you can take, books that you can read, people that you can talk to. I think there's probably no better form of education than travel. So I feel like that's a huge part of it.
Getting outside your comfort zone and the things that you will experience and the people that you'll meet and just the difference in culture. Like it's just so important that the things that you'll never see and experience if you just stay in that box and stay at home. So that's super important to get out that comfort zone, challenge yourself to do different things and meet new people and just network, because you never know, or just asking someone to meet someone, what kind of doors they can help open up for you at the end. Katie, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has really been great.
Thank
I
you.
I know you have to go, but before we got here, can you please tell everyone how they can find you?
Oh, sure. Please follow me on Instagram. It's Katie Blunt, but I put the underscore in the middle of my name, so it's cat_IE Blunt, which unfortunately seems like it's cat, for example, Blunt, but it's supposed to be Katie Blunt. There's just a line in the middle of it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably the main.
Absolutely. Katie, thank you so much for taking the time. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this episode of the Cross the Line Podcast here in Pasadena, California at the Ice House Comedy Club. Till next time, keep chasing your dreams. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.